President Cyril Ramaphosa says the country has suffered a great loss following the passing of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. Ramaphosa delivered Buthelezi's eulogy during a special Category 1 state funeral in Ulundi, KwaZulu-Natal on Saturday. Ramaphosa says Buthelezi's vision was to see both the ANC and IFP put their differences aside and reconcile. Governance expert Dr Sam Koma joins us now for some analysis. Dr. Koma, very good morning to you. Thank you for your time. Welcome to Newzroom Afrika. We saw President Ramaphosa telling thousands of mourners that there was a need to fulfill Buthelezi's dream of having the two parties that engaged in those violent clashes in the 80s and 90s set aside their differences. What do you make of the statement?
Oh, yeah. Thank you for the opportunity. So, if we cast our minds back, we know that in 2000, President Thabo Mbeki admitted that he unconditionally offered the leader of the IFP, the late Mangosuthu Buthelezi, the deputy presidency of the country in the run-up to the 1999 general elections. President Thabo Mbeki further remarked that he met with the late Buthelezi before the elections to discuss the IFP's continued participation in the ANC government. President Mandela also, in one occasion, appointed the late Mangosuthu as acting president of the country while he was away on an international trip. Remember, he remarked that he appointed him based on merit. So the current reconciliation talks between the two parties, that is the ANC and the IFP, should be viewed within this historical context. It means that ANC presidents had always considered working with the IFP and its leader in the running of the ANC government. So what is likely to happen is that the two parties will then initiate the process through the appointing or designating of conveners. The ANC may, for example, consider deploying its national chairperson, Mr. Mantashe, to initiate the process on behalf of the ANC. The IFP will also do the same. So this reconciliation talk may entail a number of issues. For example, the parties may agree on the hosting of joint programs, for example, commemoration of Human Rights Day. Two, they may also consider cooperation on policy matters in Parliament, in the provincial legislatures, or municipal councils, and very important, consider the forming of municipal coalition governments largely in the Gauteng and the KZN provinces, because this is where we have most of the hung municipal councils. So this is how I see this process panning out going forward. It's important that you say they considered working with him based on merit, because we know that in these talks that were happening before his death, Buthelezi said he wanted the ANC to recognize his role as a freedom fighter, and that he had in fact formed the IFP in 1975 with the permission from then ANC President Oliver Tambo. What do you make of the timing of these talks? How significant is that, especially considering that the battle for the KZN vote has essentially begun? Yes, so I think in this instance, remember, this unity talk was initiated by the late Mangosuthu Buthelezi, not the ANC. But he might have come to realization that he also has to extend an olive branch to the ANC, because if you look at it historically, after 1994, there's not been much hostility between the leaders of the ANC and the IFP, and that's the reason the IFP was part of the government of the national unity, and subsequent to that, the example I gave, President Mbeki also considered appointing the late leader of the IFP. So this is the relationship that the two parties want to forge. They have forged this kind of relationship before, and I think going forward, this is how the two parties will consider, of course, fulfilling the wishes of the late Mangosuthu Buthelezi. According to some sources, Dr. Koma, there were some who were apparently pushing during the discussions for the parties to in fact merge. I would imagine that the death of Buthelezi has made opposition leaders at this stage quite concerned about the potential advances of the ANC to capture what policy analyst Dr. Lucky Matebula, who I spoke to yesterday, he described it as the political soul
of a Buthelezi as a person-specific voter constituency. Is there a chance now that this window of opportunity could result in the ANC meddling in politics of the IFP for its own benefit?
Yes, I don't see the ANC merging with the IFP. Bearing in mind that just last month, the IFP was party to a process called the forging of a multi-party. Of course, the outcome of that was a multi-party charter.
Yeah.
So the IFP is part of that process, remember. I don't see them reneging on that multi-party charter. I don't see these parties also in the near future or even in the distant future considering merging as two parties and making one party. So they will continue to exist separately, having separate identities, having separate ideological posture and positioning. But in this instance, they may say, going forward, in government, for example, in parliament, in the legislatures, why not consider cooperating on a number of policy issues? And the example I gave in the context of municipalities, they may say it could best serve the interest of communities if the ANC and the IFP consider forming coalition government.
One analyst I spoke to spoke about the possibility of the IFP perhaps this time around when elections come doing much better because maybe they could do well riding on a sympathy vote. And on the other hand, some are saying that in the IFP there could come challenges over leadership. What do you think are the likelihoods now that Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi has passed on?
Yes, and remember, even before the passing of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, already there's been ructions within the IFP in terms of the ascendance of the current leader of the IFP, Hlabisa. So there have been already some tension around that. But I think going forward, they may try to say, let's unify the party for the sake of preserving the legacy of Prince Mangosuthu. So internally, they may take such a posture and decision in terms of ensuring that they unite the party as part of preserving the legacy of Mangosuthu Buthelezi. The ANC, of course, there is the mere fact that the president of the ANC, as the president of the party, has considered affording a Category 1 state funeral to the late Prince Mangosuthu. That also augurs well for him in terms of getting some support from, of course, those who are part of the voter base in the KwaZulu-Natal province. But it's not given that this is what is likely to pan out come the 2024 elections.
On the other hand, a lot of talk and speculation over Buthelezi's successor as a Zulu traditional prime minister, a position which many admit needs to be handled with some care because it's one of the most influential positions in KZN. The name of former health minister Dr. Zweli Mkhize has been mentioned. I mean, the Sunday World had a whole piece about it. Do you think the role should be occupied by a politician?
Yes, I saw the report in the Sunday World. Personally, I don't think the Zulu royal household or royalty should consider appointing someone who's already embedded in national politics. I think they should consider appointing someone who is politically neutral but has the ability to unify the Zulu nation and also ensure that they're able to cater for the needs, the interests, expectations of the people of KwaZulu-Natal in the context of the work that they do in tandem with government institutions.
Very well. Thank you so much for your time. Governance expert Dr. Sam Koma there giving us some analysis around the topic at hand. What would it take for Buthelezi's dream of reconciliation between the IFP and ANC to happen? Still to come.